Steve Jobs once looked an engineer in the eye and claimed that shaving 10 seconds off a computer's boot time was the moral equivalent of saving 100 human lives. It wasn't visionary leadership, it was a calculated psychological hack to extract unpaid labor through guilt. From Elon Musk's decade of full self-driving lies used to mask a 71% profit creator to Sam Altman's $10 billion equity grab disguised as a selfless charity. The modern tech empire isn't built on code, it's built on a clinically diagnosable pathology. We've been conditioned to worship these founders as philosopher kings, but the turtlenecks and the messianic tweets are just camouflage for a blueprint designed to decouple corporate valuation from objective reality. You are being manipulated by an elite class that weaponizes your own empathy to strip mine the future for profit. This is a masterclass in mass manipulation, a step-by-step guide to the 3 rules of the tech sociopath playbook. And it starts with the most sophisticated move in the game, hiding your cutthroat ambitions behind a mask of reluctant savior. So then, let's get into it. Let's talk about the most sophisticated way to grab unchecked corporate power today. You don't walk into a room looking like a ruthless Wall Street shark. No. You walk in looking like a reluctant savior who's just trying to stop the apocalypse. It requires pure performative altruism. You have to completely detach yourself from conventional morality, while simultaneously using your moralistic rhetoric as a weapon. The rule is simple: disguise your ruthless ambition as saving humanity. And nobody, and I mean nobody, plays the game better than the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman. To really get how this altruism illusion works, you have to look back at the absolute shell game that is OpenAI's corporate structure. Back in December of 2015, they launched in Delaware as a pure 501c3 nonprofit. They had $1 billion pledged from Altman, Elon Musk, and the rest of the Silicon Valley elites. And what did their holy manifesto say? They were going to build AGI to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by the need to generate financial return. Sounds beautiful, right? Lol. Fuck no! That nonprofit label wasn't a philosophy, it was a weaponized PR and recruiting tool. It let them poach top-tier AI researchers from Google and Meta, offering them the moral high ground. Come work for us, we're saving the world, not selling ads. It also completely blinded regulators. Nobody was looking at these guys like monopolistic tech barons. They were viewed as the philosophical custodians of a dangerous new fire. But here's the catch. Training large language models costs hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can't fund that with bake sales and charity galas. So in 2019, they pulled off a massive pivot. They went from a pure nonprofit to these convoluted capped profit model by spinning up OpenAI LP. Now they tell the public, don't worry, investor returns are capped at 100 times their money. A 100x return, that isn't a cap, that's a PR talking point masquerading as a financial constraint. But it worked. It let them vacuum up billions of dollars worth of venture capital, including a $13 billion package from Microsoft, while the nonprofit board supposedly sat on top, protecting humanity. Alright, so let's go through a quick timeline of the events here. In 2015, they were a pure charity, custodians of AGI, zero equity for founders. By 2019, they introduced the 100x cap so they can aggressively take Microsoft's money. By 2021, Sam Altman starts telling people that the caps are down to single digits to keep up with the Restrained Capitalism Act, while they grow like a tumor. By 2023, they quietly changed the rules so their profit cap can grow by 20% every year starting in 2025. And now from 2024 to 2025, they were transitioning into a for-profit public benefit corporation. Profit caps? Gone! And where does that leave Altman? Well, it leaves him with a massive personal equity stake, and the altruistic shield, well, yeah, that was just a rental. Now, if you're sitting there wondering, wait, didn't the board try to stop him? Well, yes, they did, and that brings us to the boardroom coup. Between November 17th and November 22nd, 2023, the nonprofit board, including co-founder Elon Sluker, fired Altman. Their statement was brutal. They said he was not consistently candid. That means he was lying. Investigations showed he was minimizing AI safety warnings, playing board members against each other, and shoving ChatGPT out the door at the expense of safety protocols. We also found out that he was forcing departing employees to sign non-disparagement agreements that would rip away their vested equity if they ever talk shit. Altman played dumb and said that he didn't know about it, and all while his signatures were on the documents. For a normal CEO, getting fired for lying to a board protecting humanity is a career death sentence. But this is the tech sociopath playbook. Altman instantly weaponizes the victim narrative. He flips the script. Suddenly, he is the innocent visionary, and the board is just the bunch of out-of-touch extremist doomers who don't understand the soul of the company. Within 3 days, Microsoft swoops in and says they're hiring Altman and Greg Brockman. Behind the scenes, Altman orchestrates a mafia-style revolt. Over 700 employees sign a letter threatening to quit and join Microsoft unless the board resigns and brings back Sam. The board got completely outmaneuvered, crushed by the leverage of VC money, Microsoft, and human capital. Altman walks back in and purges the dissenting board members and stacks the deck with corporate yes-men like Larry Summers and Brett Taylor. He even gives Microsoft a VIP observer seat. He took a government structure that's designed to oversee him and mutated it into an instrument that enables him. And the grand finale, the complete dissolution of the facade. Right now, they are turning into a for-profit PBC. Altman is reportedly getting a 7% equity stake that instantly boosts his net worth by over $10.5 billion, while riding a company valuation of $150 billion. That's speeding towards a $500 billion valuation after a massive $6.6 billion share sale. Advocacy groups and attorneys general in California and Delaware are furious. They're asking, is it even legal to take assets built for charity and turn them into a for-profit machine? But the capital does not stop there. SoftBank threw $40 billion at them, literally putting it in the contract that half of the money is conditional on lifting the profit cap by 2026. It is financial engineering designed to bully regulators into submission. The clinical execution is flawless. They use the rhetoric of saving humanity to secure talent and media trust, and then crashed it for a multi-billion-dollar personal payday. If Sam Altman is the quiet, behind-the-scenes manipulator, then that requires that there's a much louder, exponentially more unhinged psychological profile. If you want a valuation completely divorced from financial reality, you can't just have customers, you need a zealous, rabid cult. Well, that's where Elon Musk enters the picture, and the absolute apex predator of the Musk method. The entire foundation of Musk's empire is built on a perpetual bait and switch. You aggressively capitalize on a science fiction future to subsidize a deeply disappointing present. This generates speculative capital, inflates the stock, and justifies the insane $1 trillion pay package. Look at his most glaring example. Tesla's full self-driving? Well, for a decade, Musk has been promising that autonomous cars are just months away. And it's a pathological pattern of fabricated timelines. Let's look at the receipts. In September of 2013, we'll do 90% of our miles autonomously in 3 years. The reality was basic cruise control. In October of 2014, next year, we'll be 90% capable. Reality, well, yeah, you have to hold the wheel. In December of 2015, complete autonomy in approximately 2 years. The reality, the hardware wasn't even close. May of 2017, you'll be able to sleep at the wheel in about 2 years. Well, no. In April of 2019, I feel very confident predicting robo-taxis next year. The reality, vaporware. In May of 2024, he claimed Cybertruck full self-driving is a few months away. The reality, version 12.4 is delayed, and version 12.5 drops without Cybertruck support. And it's not just the cars. The Cybertruck was promised in 2019 for a launch in 2021, and guess what? It arrives in late 2023, overpriced, riddled with quality control issues, and padded by subsidized purchases from SpaceX. The 2025 Roadster? Well, that's been pushed to 2025 and beyond. Mars? In 2011, he said we'd be there in 10 years. Then it was 2024, then it was 2025, and then it just evaporates the second it touches actual physics. That's the reality. Even Musk knows it. In 2023, he literally told investors, "I'm the boy who cried FSD." But the terrifying part is it worked. The goal isn't to deliver the product, the goal is to keep the narrative momentum from dying. When Tesla profits cratered by a devastating 71%, what did Musk do? He pivoted. He stopped talking about cars and started hyping up billions of affordable AI-powered humanoid robots that'll be your best friend. When they unveiled the Cybercab at a Hollywood studio, did he give engineering details? No, he gave us Blade Runner aesthetics and joked about how bad his timelines are. It is pure financial genius, realizing level 5 autonomy was nowhere close and customers were pissed about dropping $15,000 for a broken promise. What did he do? They turned full self-driving into a $99 a month subscription. He turned a catastrophic engineering failure into reoccurring Wall Street revenue. Consequences for lying in Silicon Valley? Well, they don't exist. To pull this off, you need to bypass journalists and regulators and speak directly to retail investors. You need algorithmic charisma. Musk operates under a massive digital cult of personality, using memes, shitposts, and contrarian politics. His followers don't see an auto executives, they see a mythic god of human progress. They will defend his corporate dumpster fires as the heroic growing pains of a genius. And the market impact is insane. Researchers call it the Musk effect. One tweet sends Bitcoin up 16.9%, or crashing down 11.8%. He tweets, "I kinda love Etsy," and the stock jumps 9% with that. He praises Cyberpunk, and CD Projekt Red soars 12%. When he bought his 9.2% stake in Twitter, it triggered $348 million in retail buying in 2 days. Buying Twitter for $44 billion and rebranding it to X, he eternalized the global town square, and he framed it as free speech, but it was about audience capture. He elevated himself to a sovereign brand. His personality and political provocations are now literally more valuable than the actual cash flow of his companies. When you incentivize millions of people to ignore objective reality, you build the ultimate defense mode against accountability. Now let's talk about someone who has literally turned into a prophet. Steve Jobs. Well, yeah, you might be typing in the comments saying, well, he wasn't like that. Steve Jobs? Well, no! You're wrong! He was, definitely! Steve Jobs is the historical grandfather of interpersonal psychological abuse in tech. So rule number 3, a true monopoly requires employees who don't just work for a paycheck, but labor under the delusion that they're fighting a holy war. You have to use superficial charm and coercive manipulation to shatter their grip on reality. Welcome to the reality distortion field. Apple engineers coined the term in 1981. Bud Tribble named it after a Star Trek episode where aliens create new worlds through sheer mental force. Business books love to sanitize this. They call it visionary leadership. They say it pushes teams to greatness. Let me be brutally honest, it is a highly potent, deeply abusive form of manipulation. Jobs used charm, extreme hyperbole, and grinding persistence to destroy his engineers' sense of proportion. He compressed deadlines from months to days. He stole subordinates' ideas and pitched them as his own a week later. He created a paranoid, toxic culture where destroying your physical and mental health for no extra pay was a badge of honor. Bill Gates literally said Jobs used to cast spells on people. Let's look at the famous Macintosh boot time story. It's the ultimate example of his sick extraction. The early Mac had terrible RAM and slow floppy disks. It took minutes to boot. Jobs stormed into engineer Larry Kenyon's cubicle and demanded he fix it. Kenyon is a rational engineer, and he started explaining the physical limitations of the 6800 microprocessor. Jobs cuts him off and instantly pivots to a deeply manipulative moral framing. Jobs looks at him and asks, if it could save a person's life, could you find a way to shave 10 seconds off the boot time? Kenyon says, well, in a life or death situation, maybe. Jobs hits the whiteboard. He says, look, if 5 million people use the Mac and we save 10 seconds a day, that's 50 million seconds. That's 3 million hours a year. Jobs literally equates this to saving 100 human lifetimes every year. Bill Atkinson recounted that Kenyon was so impressed he came back weeks later and the machine booted up 28 seconds faster. Management applauded this. They called it thinking big. I call it sociopathic exploitation. Jobs extracted weeks of unpaid, highly stressful engineering labor by framing a minor consumer electronics update as a literal life-saving crusade. You weaponize the guy's fundamental human empathy. If you don't optimize the assembly code, you are essentially murdering people. And the legacy of this distortion field is toxic. When true product geniuses like Jobs do it, you get the Mac. But when founders who only know how to raise capital try it, you get outright fraud. Just look at Elizabeth Holmes in Theranos. She explicitly modeled her entire life on Steve Jobs. She built her own reality distortion field to deflect all scientific criticism. She manipulated boards of former secretaries of state. She demanded unquestioning loyalty to a life-saving vision, while her Edison machines were literally producing fake medical data. The Jobsian playbook teaches you that reality is malleable if you push it hard enough. But when you apply that sociopathy to human blood testing instead of consumer software, people literally get hurt. Silicon Valley has exported its internal deification of founders to the rest of us. It has warped how we view human value. We are dealing with the anti-human religion of Silicon Valley. This isn't just celebrity worship, it is a fundamentalist theology. A huge faction of tech implicitly believes that human beings are just inefficient biological machines waiting to be merged with super artificial general intelligence. I'm not exaggerating. Remember Anthony Lewandowski, the former Google and Uber engineer? He literally tried to get IRS recognition for Way of Future, an actual church dedicated to worshiping an AI godhead. Because if a machine is a billion times smarter than us, it's basically God, right? And look at the convergence of VC money with anti-democratic policies. You have billionaires hosting invite-only eschatological lectures. Look at Peter Thiel in 2025 hosting a lecture series in San Francisco about the Antichrist, blending faith, science, and culture. They frame unregulated expansion of technology as a divine evolutionary imperative. If you want labor rights or regulatory oversight or democratic consent, you're just part of the PC police standing in the way of human destiny. Writers like Paulina Borsuk were calling this techno-fascism back in the 90s. It's the belief that Valley elite are a post-national superior vanguard who deserve to rule without friction. They want a world where sociopathic traits that built their companies become the governing laws of global society. And who pays the price for this metacratic illusion? The next generation. Silicon Valley pushes the toxic can-do lie that anyone with enough hustle or code can become the next Mark Zuckerberg or Sam Altman. The new baseline for success these days is completely broken. If you haven't secured a Teal Fellowship or gone through Y Combinator or built a multi-billion-dollar unicorn by time you're the age of 22, you are psychologically conditioned to view your entire normal life as an abject failure. These guys internalize the depression and anxiety and blame themselves. What they don't realize is that the monopolies they compare themselves to were built on immense structural privilege, lucky timing, zero interest rate macroeconomic environments, and a ruthless willingness to deploy the antisocial, manipulative tactics in this playbook. Treating CEOs like 1960s rock stars or infallible prophets isn't just cringe, it's culturally toxic. Because you don't idolize your contemporaries, you take inspiration.